I was watching an old Esther Williams movie the other night. Does anybody remember Esther Williams? For those who are younger, she was a star back in the 1940s and 50s, and she was known for these, what they called the aqua musicals. You know, whenever she was in a movie, there was water always close by. And I was watching her in this one particular movie. She was coming out of the pool, you know, and she was slowly coming out with her arms up like this, you know, with the sparklers all around her. And there were all of these extras, you know, in the pool, this huge, massive pool, because they did all of these big, huge studio productions. And they were all doing the synchronized swim. And then you had the camera looking down, and you saw her going up, and then she dropped into the water, and she smiled, and she's swimming, and all of that. You know, it's a beautiful, you know, beautiful movie, and, you know, it just reminds me of that, what they call the golden era of Hollywood. You know, in fact, they called that time of the golden era the Hollywood ending, because, you know, during that time, the whole idea was to allow people, the patrons, to go into the movie theater and to get away from their troubles for about 2 hours and see these wonderful movies, these fantasies where, you know, people were, you know, a combination of drama and comedy and adventure with singing and dancing and, in this case, swimming, and they put it all together. Because the whole idea was to have this Hollywood ending where, you know, the good guy would always win, or where the guy would always get the girl, or the cavalry would always come at the nick of time to save the day, or poor Aunt Molly's house would be saved, you know. All of these feel-good cliche endings, that was what it was about. And, you know, you felt good watching these movies. You know, a little different than today. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I went to see a movie with a priest friend, and after the movie, I was stressed. I mean, I went to see the movie on my day off. I needed another day off to just recoup. You know, and this movie had won a lot of Academy Awards. I was thinking, man, this must be a great movie. I don't recommend it. I won't even give the name of it. But it was so stressful. But see, that's what movie critics love. You know, they like the movies that, you know, they don't have the happy ending necessarily. You know, they're more reality-based. You know, they're unpredictable. You know, they like movies where the good guy doesn't always win. You know, they like the kind of movies where the guy doesn't always get the girl. They like the kind of movies where the cavalry doesn't get there on time. Everybody's scalped, you know. You know, they like the movies where poor Aunt Molly's house was bulldozed right over, you know. But back in the 40s and 50s, they probably didn't realize this. They were probably not conscious of it, but what they were doing is they were tapping into something that was deep in the human psyche. For all of us, we seek, we yearn, we strive for, we look for the happy ending. We all do that. And that is the gospel narrative. That is the gospel story, is the happy ending. That's what draws us to it. You know, in today's gospel, we hear about Lazarus. And Lazarus is one of the little stories throughout the gospel. Because throughout the gospel, there are many little happy and sad temporary stories. Lazarus is the example of one of those little happy temporary stories. You know, Lazarus is raised from the dead. But the thing is, he's going to die again. And it really reflects our own lives. We experience throughout our lives, throughout the narrative of our life, little happy and sad temporary stories along the way. But they all point to and remind us of the ultimate happily ever after ending story. The story of Jesus' resurrection and the promise of eternal life to all of us who know and love him. You know, it was J.R.R. Tolkien that described that as the great eucastrophe. And what he meant by that is, you know, the reason why we don't experience the happily ever after ending in our lives is because we're still in the middle of the story. We're still experiencing those little happy and sad temporary stories along the way in our lives. That we haven't reached the end yet. But these little experiences in our lives point to ultimately that happily ever after ending. That happy ending of life, of the promise of eternal life that Christ gives us in the gospel. That is the gospel story. That's what brings us to Mass. That's what we hear in the Scriptures, in the words of the prayers that we say. It all reflects the good news. We are not people of the bad news. We are people of the gospel, the good news, of the happily ever after ending. You know, our director of faith formation, Lynn Edmonds, she shared with me an email that was sent to her last week. Yeah, she's going, what? What are you doing right here? And one of the mothers whose child is preparing for First Communion sent an email that I thought was very nice. I think it was last week you had, or the week before, you had a workshop for these little kids who are preparing for First Communion. And Lynn does a great job always, and she prepares for this. And this mother reflected on that. She said, on that particular day, it was very busy. It was a rough day. And she was willing to come to the workshop for her child, but, you know, her heart wasn't in it. You know, it was just yet one more thing on her busy schedule. And so she came. But her mood soon changed as she saw how her child and the other children were really connected and kind of focused on the exercises that were prepared for them. You know, they were engaged and they were asking questions. And they came to the part where they were telling the story of Holy Thursday, that first Holy Thursday and Good Friday. And she was saying how difficult it is to share that story in a way so that children can get it. But she said the children got it. And as they were listening to the story, her little boy said to her, "Oh, it's so sad. But I'm so glad to know that the happy part is coming." I wonder if Jesus' friends knew that the happy part was coming. I wonder if they knew that Easter was almost here. My friends, so simple and yet so profound. Because you and I, we have been preparing and know that Easter is coming. We've been preparing for the last 5 weeks of Lent. And we do know of the happy ending. We're very familiar with that happy ending, and that's why we come. That's why we celebrate. That's why we rejoice in the happily ever after ending that's promised to you and I. So let us rejoice. Let us be glad. Because for you and I, friends of Jesus Christ, disciples, we know of that happy ending, for we know we are the people of the gospel, the good news. God bless you.